You are listening to That Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage to create an impactful community, teaching you how to lead your life and your business with compassionate strength. It can be scary stepping out from the barriers we still carry while we were once employees and change the narrative to take charge of your business and team. This podcast is a place for you to come to learn to do just that. From personal experiences, interviewing new friends, I hope that you will tune in to listen all that living that big CEO energy can offer you and your business. I'm your host, Callie, entrepreneur and fractional COO. Let's jump in. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have Monica Allen. She is a wife, a mom, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, and she deems herself as a lifelong learner, which I love. And she started her first business almost 20 years ago. She has the podcast, which is called Stitch for Success, and that's where she breaks through the barriers and build businesses while teaching you how to leave a legacy while doing all of that. And her goal really is to help you launch, grow, and scale your business so that you can sustain and leave a lasting legacy for years to come and avoid many of the pitfalls of business ownership. So, Monica Allen, thank you so much for being here and willing to talk about the nitty-gritty of behind the scenes of women working in business.
Yeah, for sure.
Take us back 20 years ago. What was your first business that you started, and how many businesses have you started since then?
Sure. I'd love to do that. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate that. And I do want to tell you something about my podcast, but I'll tell you that down the road. So it all started when I started my very first business when I was in fourth grade. And I sold candy, freeze pops, and sodas out of my house because I lived in a very small town and we lived out in the country. And for the kids in our neighborhood to get candy and things like that, their parents had to get in a car and take them to a store that was 6 miles away. And so that was my very first business. And honestly, it was pretty lucrative, especially during the summer months when kids were at home all day. It was really great. I always like to say my grandmother was my first employee because when I wasn't around, she would sell for me. She was awesome, about 5 feet, very spunky lady. But that was my very first business. And I knew growing up that, I went through the phases of like, oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to be a lawyer. Oh, I want to be when Top Gun came out, I wanted to be an airplane pilot, but I don't have very good vision. So that wasn't going to work for me. But I knew I always really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I love talking to entrepreneurs, other business owners. It was just such a thing for me. But at the time, I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know there was a title for it, right? When I was a young kid. But once I got out of college, I went into corporate America, really saw myself in the suit and the briefcase going to the high-rise building. And that dream came true for me. I did that thing. But after a while, I hit that glass ceiling. I actually just hit the ceiling because I didn't even think I could really see through it. It was just a ceiling. I hit the ceiling after going up many different titles. And I just knew I wasn't going to go any further. And because I knew I wanted to have a business, I started brainstorming with my then boyfriend, now husband, on a business concept. We were both in fraternities and sororities. And at the time we were like, oh, this online thing is so new. We should start a website and sell all these little tchotchkes and trinkets. And finally, he and I, as we thought about all this inventory we should have to sell, we thought, well, we don't have a place to put all this stuff. You live in an apartment and I live in an apartment. How is that going to work? And so what we ended up doing is he was an artist and he can like literally draw anything. And we ended up selling designs for fraternity and sorority flyers and gear. Well, eventually people said, well, okay, you drew me this great picture. You created this wonderful artwork. I don't know where to get it made. Can you help me with that? And so for a year, we outsourced to a company that we found who did embroidery. We didn't even know what it was at the time. We just thought it was like little old lady sewing machines, but we found that it was called embroidery. I found a place not far from our house. I think by this time maybe we were married. I can't really remember the timeline, but we found a place. They were very helpful. Such another couple, super sweet, very helpful to us. And they got us started. They would take our orders and fulfill them for us, and we'd ship them out. But after about 11 months, one week they just disappeared and we had orders that needed to ship. And we freaked out because customers are calling, hey, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? And unfortunately, the owner's dad had passed away, one of the owners, and she was gone for a week. I mean, you can't be mad at that, right? But what what they circled around to tell us is that, hey, you guys, your business is growing, and how about we help you learn how to do this stuff yourself, because we can't handle your business and our business. So they were very nice to kind of send us off to a conference and tell us what we needed, and we got started.
Wow, that is amazing. Oh my goodness. I just want to circle back on something that you said when you were talking about corporate and just sort of you felt like you were hitting the top of the ceiling and you had marked all these titles and climbed the corporate ladder and you just knew that this was it. What was that feeling that you had inside of you? What really was there a certain moment? Was there something that happened that just was the catalyst for you to be like, I'm out. This is the end of the road for me. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I actually had two moments and I can remember them pretty well. One, I had a wonderful manager. Her name was Susan. So sweet. I mean, just the best cheerleader. But her manager, he was not so sweet. I mean, he was a new manager for me and a manager for her because, and I was in the insurance industry. And so there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening all the time. And so I literally worked under three different brands in 8 years, but for the same company. But they just kept buying and merging and all the things. But for some reason, this manager just wasn't very fond of me. And I had never really even met him. So I don't know what it was about that made him unhappy. But to me, that was just not very professional. And for him to have a high position like that and have that type of attitude towards a team member that you haven't even gotten to know, I didn't think it spoke very well for the company. And then the second part was one day I was on the elevator with the regional director and I got off on, I believe I was on the 8th floor. And I know it's kind of metaphorical, but he kept going up and I got off. And it was like at that moment, I realized I would never go up to that level because it was just too many layers in between he and I. And so at that moment, it was just kind of like, okay, I've got to build my own building so I can have my own ceiling. It was just a moment for me. Those two moments were enough for me. And I didn't see females advancing as much. And so I just felt like it wasn't the place for me to be. And I wouldn't end up on the level that I wanted to be on in the end.
So when you stepped off the 8th floor, did you start cultivating an exit strategy or did you just cold turkey, I'm out?
Okay, so I am risk averse. So I always have to have a plan or strategy. Now it may not always work out the way I plan or strategize, but I always have one. So I began to plan, I began to save. I knew bonus marks in our company. And so I knew if I hit these certain markers, I'd get bonuses. And so by the time I left, and it was funny because about 8 to 9 months before I put in my resignation letter, I was literally bawling one night because at this point, Ethan's my husband now, Ethan and I were working full-time jobs and running a company on the side. So
Oh my
the
goodness.
company we started was a side hustle. So I literally would work from like 7 to 4 in my main job. And then I'd go and work in our business. And so sometimes we'd be up to 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning because at this point we're doing it ourselves. We aren't outsourcing it anymore. And one night at 2 a.m., I'm bawling. I'm exhausted. And he's like, just quit. We'll be fine. Just quit. But I couldn't do that. One, I couldn't do that to my sweet manager, Susan. And two, risk averse. And I knew I had these bonuses coming up and I wanted to plan accordingly and have the money saved. So that's what I did. I sucked it up. I wiped the tears away and I went to work the next day and I stayed for about 8, 9 more months, saved my bonuses. We ended up being able to buy a house and we moved our business into the basement of our house. And so it worked out really, really well. But I am a strategizer and a planner. So I did have to plan my exit.
I can emulate with that. It's funny because we have a similar a similar story. You know, I was in insurance and same with you. I had a direct manager that I absolutely loved. She was the sweetest thing on the face of the planet. But there's the guy in the corner office, right? There's the guy with the direction and the overhead. And I always just had the pit in my stomach when I arrived at the office. Like I knew that wasn't for me. I knew it wasn't the environment that I wanted to be in. And I'm sure you could probably relate to this, but ultimately it was like, how in the can I get out of here? Right?
Yeah.
Because I I have bills to pay, right? And I have this side hustle that I love dearly, but it's like how do you really make the shift? And so when you left corporate, was there a mind shift that you had to make stepping into your own business and really taking on that CEO role? Because I think there's something different that happens when we're playing with a little, you know, side hustle and we're doing the thing and showing up to corporate throughout the day. And then when you get rid of sort of this corporate thing, your mind almost has to make a turn
Yeah.
somehow to where you're all in, right?
Hmm.
Did you have sort of that mindset work and what did that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember distinctively like, okay, flip the switch, but I do remember my last day was like on June 15th of 2005. And I remember the next day I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't actually have anywhere to be per se. I don't have to get in the car and drive somewhere. But I did know that I still had work to do. And in all honesty, I tell people this all the time who want to go into their own business is you will work harder in your own business than you ever worked for anyone else because you are the end all be all to what you eat. So, I literally would be up at 7, going to bed at midnight for a long time. And at the time, I had that kind of energy because I was so excited about what the possibilities were. And it was a constant just array of thinking of, oh, we can do this and we can do that and we can do this. And it's like outlining all that. And then once you start hiring people, then you're on a whole nother trajectory because you got to think about what are their motivations? What will help them succeed and be happy in working with your company? So it was definitely a shift. But I will also say I took a lot of things from my corporate job with me, especially like when it comes to standard operating procedures, putting things into place. Those structures that really large companies have, I was very much about it. So like insurance was very important for me to offer to my team, making sure, payroll was done properly and on time. That was always big to me. I didn't want to have to tell team members, oh, your check is going to be late this week. To me, that was like small business mentality. And I just didn't want to operate like that. So I really focused on those positive parts of corporate that I brought with me. And then there was the negative parts that I just did not bring with me. I knew I did not want. So, for example, once we moved our business out of our basement, I knew the space would not have cubicles. There would be no beige cubicles. There would be no cubicles. That was very important to me. It was very important that the space was creative and open and people could feel like they're coming into a place that creativity happens. That was just really important to me. So
What other negative things did you leave behind?
I didn't want to be that manager. I tell people now when I hire them, it's just as important that you're happy here as it is to me to be happy with you being here. If you're
Mm.
miserable, if you wake up every morning and you dread coming here, I don't want that for you. Life is too short for that. So come talk to me. Let's see if we can fix it. But if we can't fix it, let's see if there's a place you can go that will make you happy. Like, what are your goals? What are your dreams? I created a planner this year called the Become Your Own Boss Planner. And I actually haven't had an opportunity to do it yet, but I told my husband, I'm like, I want to sit down with our team and I want to give them each one of these because I really want them to sit down and think about what are your long-term goals? Like, how do you want your life to look different next year? And how can we help you get there? It's just really important to me that people, no, you don't have to come into the building all jovial and, telling jokes. That's not required. But what I don't want for you is misery. So I don't want that for anybody. So I don't want to be that manager.
Yeah, that manager. Yep. And we can put that in quotations for sure. Because we all, at some point, probably in our
Yes.
careers, have had that manager. And I
Yep.
think it's important to talk about like the characteristics of who that person is and who, when you transition, or if you plan on transitioning from corporate into your own business, like keeping in mind those key things of what not to portray. Because I think it's very easy
Mhm.
as you are building a team, as you are building a business, to find yourself in the rhythm of being that manager sometimes. I mean, we can just be honest about it. You have to have
Yeah.
rules and you have to have a structure and all of those things, of course. But
Right.
that manager is a blanket and umbrella for so much more than that. And really, thank you for shedding a light on what those things were that you just had to release, because I think it's important for everyone to really just look internally on what are the reasons why you left corporate, right? And
Yeah.
it goes beyond the benefits. It goes beyond the flexible work schedule. It's the actual person that you're reporting to. And then how can you make sure that when you transition out, like you also don't become that person?
Exactly.
So thanks for that. But what does running your business as a CEO really mean to you? And what I mean by that is what are key things that when you show up every day that really lights your heart on fire, where you're like, I have this CEO energy that is just like radiating, that is positive. If there is one nugget of information for people to take on, what is that?
So it's interesting. That's a very interesting question, Callie, because I think pre-COVID, it was one thing and post-COVID, it's another.
Oh,
Yeah. So before COVID, I was very much about all the things, checking all the boxes, making sure, okay, I have my team members, their folders have everything in it, that just all the check boxes. I had at one point, and when I say a lot of team members, at one point we were up to like 16. So I was able to really focus on like all of the paperwork and making sure all my T's were crossed, I's are dotted, financials are looked at every single week, all the things. And then COVID happened. And our team is much smaller now. I wear I wear more hats now. And so all of the T's aren't getting crossed and all the I's aren't getting dotted. And that bothers me. So we're circling back. We're getting back to where we should be. But I really think COVID kind of knocked me off my CEO wheel and just kind of literally, I had mail stacked up in my office for months because I did not have the energy to like dive into it and manage two kids who are virtual for a while. Just juggling all of that, some things just fell.
yeah.
But I feel like energy level today that I'm getting back on task. I just offered two people jobs yesterday. Well, one on Saturday and one yesterday. So I'm very excited about bringing them in. I was telling my husband, I'm like, okay, we've got to start back having our quarterly meetings because we used to have these summits, the yearly annual summits where we talked about vision and goals and for the business and where people fit in. And for 2 years, that stuff has just been crazy. We're just all trying to manage, trying to just get through the day. It's getting better. And I'm super excited about the new team members that are coming along and starting to get back to our all hands on deck meetings and all the kind of things that really help a company run smoothly. Like I said before, I want my team members to have a good experience in our business. We are not micromanagers, and it's really important to me, team members that we bring on understand that, and they are okay with maybe not being looked over all day, because that's just not my personality. I have 100,000 things to do.
Talking about COVID is awful, but when you're a woman in business and you're a mom and you're a wife and 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 right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
During that 2 years, do you feel like now you have more of an appreciation for your business and how it runs because of COVID?
Yeah. Okay. Definitely a greater appreciation for my business. And the reason I say that is because back in 2020, when COVID hit and just all the things came tumbling, right? I wanted out. I was just like, I've been doing this for too long. I'm done. I just want to be
Oh.
done. This is a lot, But 2021 came around, and honestly, I read this book called Cumulative Advantage by Mark Schaefer. Very great book. And it made me realize that, yeah, I've been doing this a long time and we're really good at what we do, and people value what we do. Why would I give that up? I just need to figure out a better way to manage it. And I
Mm.
need to figure out how to get things off of my plate so I can focus on the strategy, the big moves, the big plays. So that's where I am this year, is really focusing on what resources do I need to allow me and my husband, because he's in the business with me still, to make the big moves, the big plays. But I can remember specifically COVID, I handle like all paperwork, anything that deals with money. I do all those things. I have a bookkeeper and an accountant and all of that, but I do all those things. So when COVID hit and I'm like, crap, we aren't making any money. How are we going to pay people? I had to get very, very resourceful. I literally was researching EIDL from before they even had it posted for COVID yet. So I was calling, finding out like, hey, what do I do? And the guy's like, just keep coming to the website. It's going to be up. I mean, they were very, very great at the SBA with answering questions because people were in panic. So we filled out all the paperwork, did all that. I spent I can like still feel myself sitting on my couch, like filling out all this stuff, but it saved my business and it allowed me to continue to have my team members come in. They worked kind of rotating shifts, so they weren't breathing on each other. We just did what we could to make it work, to make it happen. And we live in Georgia. So we were literally closed for like 3 weeks. And then it was like, go back, do your thing. So not like some states that are still, I feel like still closed. So, but we still operate in a very cautious way. We're very careful, making sure people are safe as much as we can. But it was hard. But we were just kind of like operating on, oh, well, we'll hire in 2020. And then 2020 happened and we were like, okay, well, we won't hire in 2020. We'll just, make it work the best we can with the team we have. And keeping them employed was important for us. So, yeah.
When we talk about bouncing back,
Mm-hmm.
what are, I know that you have your beautiful planner, which that is like on my checkout cart today. I am a planner junkie, first of all, but I think what's important that you have in there is setting monthly goals.
Mm-hmm.
And as a CEO, as a business, that is super important. So, can you talk a little bit about the goal setting that you have in place as a planner, right? Because we
Yeah.
know you're that person. You need to strategize. So when you're on the SBA and you're taking care of your people and you get past this transition and you're like, okay, I feel like we're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is the mindset shift that happens when you sit down and you write your goals? Can you talk about some of the core things that you use within your goal planning?
Sure. So one of the things about the planner that I have or that I've created is around 6 buckets. And actually, these buckets were created by my husband, and I love them when he did a presentation on them some years ago. It's probably been 10 years ago. And I loved it. And I took it and I'm like, this is how I'm going to live my life. It's called Simple. It's a simple path to prosperity, is what he called it. And I absolutely loved it. And he kind of dropped it and just kind of walked away from it. And I'm like, no, I love this. So simple means spirituality, intellect, money, physical, love and relationships, and entertainment. All of those six things are super important to me. And they're super important to him, which is how he came up with it. And so I take that and I pulled it into the planner. I give him 100% credit for it, but I told him I was going to use it because I literally started living my life within those buckets and trying really hard to make sure that I focused on each one of those buckets each week, each month. If something's not being fulfilled, like what can I do next month that's different, you know? So when I set my goals, I really look at what do I want to be different at the end of 2022? How do I want to be different? And how do I get there? And so that's the question I put before me. I actually have a goals workshop that's going to be coming up in mid-March because I don't think you should just set goals at the beginning of the year because you tend to lose them. Anyway, so I'm going to have that coming up. And around that, I asked some questions to people. And I won't get into all that here, but the main question is, how do you want your life to be different at the end of 2022? And base your goals on that. So for me, of course, I want to continue to grow spiritually. That does not mean I'm going to church every Sunday per se. That may not be for me, but it may be for someone. It's whatever works for you. Money, how do I want my finances to look? That could be in my business or in my personal life. But we know as business owners, Callie, that business feed into our personal. So what does that all look like? Intellectual or intellect? That's my lifelong learner piece. I'm all about reading. I'm usually reading about 3 books at one time. And that may be business. I love reading business books, but sometimes I throw in a little fiction just because I do like, imagination and
Yeah.
fun. So those buckets are really important to me. And so I set goals around that. And so when it comes to my business, I have to look at where do I want my business to be at the end of 2022? The same thing. So on my vision board, which I printed out a copy, all of us love Canva. I actually cut it out and printed it in here. But one of the things I have on here is great team. So I am focused on building a great team this year. That is my biggest focused goal for my business, because I know if I can build a great team, then any other vision I have, I can get it done.
Absolutely.
But I cannot do it without having a great team. So that's my biggest one.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it really is just keeping it simple. Just those 6 buckets, whether it's your personal life or business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I have goosebumps. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
so welcome.
And talking about your planner, do you also digital plan? Like, do you
So,
use Google? What does that look like?
so my calendar on my phone is really about me and my husband not planning something at the same time. It's really about what are the kids' activities, what meetings do we have. That's really centered more around the electronic stuff because I need to know, like, for example, I had this interview this morning. Well, that was on my digital calendar. It wasn't necessarily on my planner. I did write it in there, but it didn't have to be because it was on my digital calendar. I knew I need to click on the Zoom link, that type of thing. So I do use that. But for me, I cannot get into the nitty gritty of planning on a digital platform. And when I say planning, Callie, I'm talking, I am writing what
Oh,
my
y'all.
goal is. I know it's hard to see,
Her
but
planner is full.
what my goal is and why I want it. Why do I want that?
I want it.
Because you have to determine why is something important to you. Like for intellect, I put this under intellect. I want to learn to cook vegetarian. Well, why do I want that? Because I need to be healthier. I need to eat healthier. I need to be healthier. So I've got to make sure I manage that because I want to be here a long time for my
Yeah.
kiddos.
Yeah. Something that you said that really piques my interest and something that I love to teach other people is the why. Like if people understand the why on
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing, what the outcome is going to be, then it really becomes this full circle for them that helps you take initiative, right? Because when you
Hmm.
can understand like why you're doing something, it becomes that much more thoughtful and meaningful to where
Right.
like we were talking about the goals, if you're just writing down things just to write them down because everybody else is doing that, or you see it on YouTube or Instagram, and everybody feeds in, these are my 22 things that I'm doing for 2022.
Hmm.
And you're saying, oh, yes, I want to do those also. Well, why? Why are you wanting to do those things?
Right.
Like of all people, you don't have a lot of time to mess with like 22 goals in 2022. Like you have to be
Yeah.
very strategic on your day and the goals that you're meeting. But ultimately, I think keeping it simple like you do allows it to be attainable
Yeah.
and allows when you get to the end of the year to go, oh yeah, like I made it this far in this goal, and that's okay. Next
Hmm.
year, I'm going to work on this second part or whatever that is.
Exactly.
So thank you for bringing that to light because I see it all over social media of just again these people marking 22 goals, and I'm like, how is that attainable? And without providing someone the why of doing it,
Yeah.
it often just sets yourself up for failure.
And I don't have 22 of them. I don't think I can handle that, but
No, what mom
yeah.
can?
I can't handle that. And then I will say, so I take my annual goals and then I break them down to monthly goals to move, so it feeds back into the annual ones. And then I take those monthly ones and break them down to weekly tasks to get them done. So every month I'm not going to address every goal on my annual list because I can't do that, but I have to take them kind of, well, what's important this month? And so for example, for this month, I've got to finish my website, my personal branding website. And so that's one of the things that, for each day or every other day, I have like a little task to do on that. So get my SEO together, finish my blog entries, little things like that go on my daily kind of to-dos. And I will tell you, Callie, my most favorite thing. And again, this planner, I started it just for me. I literally just would go to Kinko's. I created it on my computer. I would go print it out at Kinko's and go get it just because I have to write things down. And I love the satisfaction of checking them off.
Yes.
That's the excitement. Woohoo. But one of the things that's on here is every single day, it's called My One Thing. And that box is for that one thing that if you get it done, you will feel fabulous at the end of the day. If you got nothing else done, but just that one thing, you'll be like, yes, I did it. I'm good. I can have a dance party. I don't know. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit about your other businesses. So you have the planner. We'll also talk about the podcast because y'all, her podcast is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So there's the planner, and then
Hmm.
you also have a clothing. We talked a little bit about that. So tell us all
Right.
the things.
So we have stuffforgreeks.com, which is all of our fraternity and sorority people can buy stuff online. They can also come see us physically here in Atlanta, but that's one. And then we have Zeus's Closet, which is our physical stores. We have two stores here, one in Atlanta, like West Midtown, and one in Kennesaw, which is near Kennesaw State University. We have one there. And so people can come in and we do a lot of customization of pretty much anything. I mean, you can bring in a bathrobe and just get a name on it, but we can also put your picture on a sweatshirt. We really do wacky, crazy stuff, but it's a lot of fun because we get to be artistic and creative. We also have a company called Deuce Equity Group, which holds our commercial space. And within that commercial space, I actually rent out a space on Peer Space, which I absolutely love because I get to meet so many different people who are having all these different events. So ladies who are having baby showers or event planners that are doing meetings or conferences. And so that's a lot of fun for me. It's not a huge space, but people love it because it's open, it's lofty, it has free parking, all the positive
Free
things.
parking is a must.
Free parking is so helpful. So that's one of my things that I pretty much manage that. And I truly enjoy it. It's so much fun. And then I have Monica Allen Interiors, which I love interior design. I love houses. And I've kind of put that business on the back burner, and I will only take on people that I know. So I do it for a lot of my friends and close colleagues. And then Become Your Own Boss is the planner. And Callie, you probably don't know this because it literally just happened last week. But I rebranded the podcast to become the Become Your Own Boss podcast.
I saw your graphic. It's beautiful, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you. So that just happened last week, but I'm feeling so much more in alignment with it. And I'm very, very stoked about that. And then the other thing is, I'm just trying to be Monica Allen, all things business. I love talking to students about business. I love talking to people about business. So sometimes I'll go out and I'll speak and talk business with people. So
I
that's
love
pretty
it.
much it for me.
What is one thing that you would share with people that have a brain such as yours, where they are so multi-passionate and they want to make a business literally out of every nugget of their life? What are some tips for them that you can share?
Well, I think the first tip I would give is that you do have to determine because it's very, very easy to be all over the place. And I have a business idea a day. I truly do. And some of them just they're fleeting because they come and they have to go because I don't have the bandwidth to truly make them happen. So you have to decide like really where your passions are. And I also say you don't have to have my planner, but you have to have somebody's planner or a planner. So you can really figure out how you're going to get it done because you cannot be everywhere and do all the things. And then lastly, I have something called dots, but I'm going to do a podcast episode. That's actually what my podcast episode is about this Friday. But basically
We will link that.
delegating and outsourcing, um, adding technology where you need to. And right now the S is leaving my brain, but listen to the episode and
Yeah.
you can check that out. But I have found that delegating and outsourcing is extremely important. And the way I do that is I have literally taken down what's important to me. Well, let me back up. I write down all the things that I have to do and what's important to me that I do them. So, for example, I love to use this example because I can remember when we had our first child, my husband was like, well, why don't we get someone to like take her to preschool, pick her up from preschool, take them to school. And then we had another one. It's like, we can get someone to take them to school and pick them up from school. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'd rather hire someone to be in the office and I pick them up from school and take them to school. That's more important to me. And the reason for me, it was more important to me is because I want to know my kid. I want to know when I pick them up how they usually are. So then when they're unusual, when they get in the car, I will know that. And I've had moments. I've had moments when I picked up my daughter and I'm like, so what's going on today? And I might have to dig a little bit, but she explains to me something that happened in school or whatever. If I wasn't the person picking her up every single day and knowing the tone and action and how she normally behaves, I wouldn't have noticed that. And
Mm.
so that was important to me. And I'm not knocking anybody who does that by any means. You have to do what works for you. But for me, it was more important for me to hire a team member to be in my office so I could do that mommy part at 3 o'clock every day.
Yeah, I
So,
think the overall goal there is to really have an honest conversation with yourself, right? And say, what are the
mm-hmm.
important parts? What are the things that I love doing? And I love that your mind is focused on delegating and outsourcing to the areas that you either don't love, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't serve you and make you genuinely happy, find someone to do that, right?
Yes,
That might
definitely.
not happen in the first few years of your business because you're in the trenches and doing the thing. We get that. But when you find an opportunity where you can leverage, some capital to find somebody to help you, that's
Yeah.
super important to already have sort of your business mind frame of these are the things that I absolutely cannot stand. Whether for me,
Yeah.
that's cleaning my house. No, thank you. I'm out. I don't like doing that. So I hire someone to do that because I
Yes.
cannot. Same with groceries, it's like grocery pickup. I have Amazon Prime, like all of those things.
All the
You
things.
have to. You absolutely have to, because then you find yourself working in the trenches of 2020 going, I'm just going to leave the stack of mail sitting on my desk because I don't want to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Hmm.
that's an elective thing, the stack of mail will continue to grow if you don't address, and then in 2021, whatever that looks like, finding
Yeah.
someone to come back and open the mail, right?
Yeah. I outsourced it to my mom and she really enjoyed it.
She loves it. Moms
She
love
loved it.
opening mail. I don't
Yeah,
even
she
understand.
loved it. She's
Thanks,
like,
Mom.
I've organized your mail. It's all organized. I'm like, oh, thank you so much.
Thanks,
You're
Mom.
awesome. But you made me think of something because Ethan and I decided this years ago because, well, one, he's not very good at cutting grass anyway. He doesn't know how to do the lines right. And so we outsourced that because he's like, the time that I would spend doing a yard, I could make double what I'm paying someone to do my yard or triple. And I do think that it's so like, I really enjoy my work. I really enjoy strategizing and making things happen and moving the needle. I love that stuff. Sometimes I have to make myself stop and say, go read books to your children, because I really enjoy it. So the things that I don't enjoy doing, like going to the grocery store and, going to pick up supplements or vitamins. Yes. Amazon, Instacart, all the things that I can find. Like you said, Callie, getting someone to clean my house. I don't do that. I actually have a college student that comes in my house 4 days a week and she like does the laundry, folds the clothes, puts them away. I cannot stand doing those things, but it took me a while to get there because I was like, oh, but this is what moms do. This is what I do. I do laundry and I fold stuff on the weekends. And I'm like, I don't want to spend my weekends like that. I want to run around and play with my kids on the weekends.
The
So that's what I
societal
do.
expectation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Show up, do it all. Make sure that you're doing it all. Don't forget that you need to, fold the 6 loads of laundry on and then you have to turn around and be an entrepreneur. And it's like, well, then how does Monica Allen show up? Right? Where does
Exhausted.
Monica Allen fit in? Right? And I
Yeah.
think it's wonderful that now you're starting to circumvent the Monica Allen wheel to find your personal brand, find whatever that is. And I know just from the things I see online that you're wonderful at helping women strategize and helping other businesses make a plan and execute, because that's also important, is
Definitely.
having that honest conversation with yourself about the things that you cannot stand, but then strategizing and putting the action plan in place to make sure that those things are being done and you're allowed and you can show up as your authentic self, especially in an online space, right?
Right.
Showing up as your true self online is probably the utmost importance, so that you truly internally don't feel like a phony. It's not for anybody
Right.
else, but it's like for yourself. You don't want to be
Exactly.
fake smiling and all of that jazz. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
So we
you.
talked a little bit about the upcoming, in the mid-March, your workshop, that your mastermind that you have going on.
Mhm.
What are some other things that you have happening where people can tap into you and get resources?
Sure. Well, definitely subscribe to the podcast, Become Your Own Boss podcast. That's going to always be the place where you can hear the latest and greatest of not only what I'm doing, but also just interviews with other entrepreneurs. I like to talk to people from early stage all the way to 20 plus years because everyone has insight. And my goal is to help people, launch, grow, and scale their business, but try to avoid mistakes if you can, learn from someone else's mistakes. That's one of the things, and Kelly, I know you didn't ask this, but I'm going to just say this. That's one of the
Please.
things, probably one of my greatest regrets is that early on, I did not jump into a community of other entrepreneurs, or I did not surround myself with other entrepreneurs. My husband and I did not grow up around entrepreneurial parents. And so when we left our jobs, my mom was very supportive. His parents thought he was a little crazy, but we knew we had a plan and we knew it was going to work. We really did feel very good about it. And we had savings. We did have a little bit of savings, but just having some other person or group of people around you to cheer you on, to bounce ideas off of, to talk to, the frustration is so important. And I will say, Callie, I don't know what that looks like for me yet, but I do want to create a community like that for people. I want people to have a community of fellow solopreneurs or young starting entrepreneurs that they can surround themselves with, because it's lonely. You know that it can be very lonely. And to talk to somebody and learn something new, or them share a mistake that they made and kind of feeds into a mistake that you're about to make. And you're like, maybe I won't do that. After all, that's such a great valuable thing to have.
Absolutely.
Anyway, but yeah, the podcast is the best place. And of course, if you're interested in a planner, you can just go to becomeyourownboss.school and you can actually see the planner there.
Yes, it's a beautiful planner. She has layouts in there so you can really see what you're getting when you purchase it. And thank you so much again for all of the value that you bring, not only just to this podcast, but out into the world. For those of you that are not on Clubhouse, following Monica, please, please, please do, because your rooms are always wonderful value. And again, just honing in on those little tips and tricks that you're just trying to give out to the world. And if it resonates with you, great. If it prevents you from potentially making a huge mistake, even better.
Yes.
But I think we're all in this big boat together and we're all rowing together. And it's super important, like you said, to have a community that is built around. So thank you for extending your hand and offering that to everyone to just come and walk beside you and learn from you, because you share a lot of value. And obviously in your personal success, you have deemed some wonderful entrepreneurial success. So thank you for showing up today and sharing your heart and your journey. I really, really appreciate it. And for those of you that are looking to connect with Monica, we will have all of the links in the show notes. So go there and connect with her on social media.
Thank you, Callie.
Thanks for listening to That Big CEO Energy. If you heard something today that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people like you become inspired just like you are. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.